All right. All right. So first of all, I want to welcome everybody here. And so just so you know what's coming up, we do have water aerobics. If you signed up for water aerobics, it's this Saturday.
Yep, this Saturday.
Barbie will not be there, but didn't you say they could still do it?
Okay, I thought that by the time we left, we weren't doing it, so.
Let's all check with Ann to
Okay.
see.
Okay.
'Cause I thought
I
thought
told you that we weren't doing it, but if they're doing
Well, I
it.
was confused, that's why I was.
Okay. Well, it's off then. Water aerobics is off for now. And then yoga is off.
In your backyard going,
It's
"Come
supposed
on."
to rain.
Okay.
It's supposed to rain a lot on Saturday.
Oh, that's
Okay.
right, and
Yeah.
I'm out doing things.
All right, so I shouldn't have probably started the tape, so sorry
That's
for all
okay,
of
no,
you
good,
people at
you're
home here, but I just wanted also, we're gonna do a painting, paint on rocks, or if you don't wanna paint on the rock, you can paint on paper with acrylics and acrylic markers. So I've got people that already wanna do it, so I want other people to sign up, so get back to me if you wanna do that. And then we're gonna do the book thing, next month, and any craft, you thinking of doing some fall crafts, Barb?
I haven't put my mind to it, but we'll work on it.
Okay,
So is the painting with our guest speaker from Kansas City?
nope.
Oh,
As of now, Cheryl Godsey has not said if she's going to come or not, if that's what we're talking about, but no. All right,
Are you doing a particular book or a, why I ask is some folks, I don't do it, but folks I know are doing this book club thing, and I heard the name of the book and it was,
okay, no, the book's gonna be that same thing we did that one time where everybody bring your
Okay.
books that you've been reading, and then you can
Okay.
tell everybody about the book.
Okay.
It was really a lot of fun.
Okay.
But
better
it's-
than all read the
This is the way
same
to do
book.
It was extremely stressful for me because I wrote everybody's down, and I thought I'd be polite and read every single person one book that they suggested, and I had the best time, but it was a lot of reading. So I've really read some bestsellers this summer, but it was super fun, so I'm really hoping people come and do that again, and we're also gonna have take one, leave one, so if you wanna get rid of a book, take it, bring it, and if you wanna take 3 books, you can, because last time people brought it. So it was a lot of fun, and the patio will be, fun that day. And then the only other thing I was going to say is Cooking with Suzanne is the 9th, so it's next Thursday.
Here?
It's here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Do
so
we
now I'm
do money
super,
Tonight for it, or do we do next
just
week?
pay, if anybody has fees, like the cooking, cause it has the, things with it and stuff, you just pay them directly, you don't pay us.
Okay.
And just go up and pay them at the beginning, just
Okay.
like with their
That's
aerobics
cool. I
and
didn't
stuff.
know.
And sorry to do the whole, but weather willing, a week from Saturday, we'll have
We will have.
water aerobics. And
Okay.
if you never came before, you can still come because it's a fun group.
And for the people that are gonna watch it later or watching it now, the whole thing is geared around having fun during the pandemic, so we are outside, we have 2 fans on. I feel pretty comfortable without a mask on, and I'm not requiring masks since that's why we're doing it this way, but you're welcome to wear them if you want them. And then if we ever do anything inside, so far I will be requiring masks, but we don't have anything scheduled, but I'm just saying that's how it is, just so we can all stay safe, like we did last year, fun and stuff. Okay, now I'm super excited to introduce our next guest. I'm not gonna give her a long introduction, but she's Lynn Venhaus. She used to work at the Globe Democrat years ago, and that's kind of like where we know her from, but then you just know her from seeing her around with all of her bylines, and she has things in the Webster Carpet Times. I put down popstl.com, is that it?
PopLifeSTL.com.
Poplifestl.com. She has movie reviews and all sorts of things on entertainment. So I saw this really interesting thing she put on Facebook about Robert Redford. And so
85.
here we are. And while I'm saying that to the people at home, we got this better than Robert Redford cake. So if you were here, you would be eating some.
And it's really good. Sorry you're not here. Thank you.
All right, take it away, Lynn.
Hi, everybody. Well, I think most of the participants, correct me if I'm wrong, first fell in love with Robert Redford probably in high school or college. And my first experience was when I was a sophomore watching Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And that was life changing. I went to an all-girls school, so So that was life changing. And my sister and I brought a picture of my sister Julie. She's 3 years younger than me. And so we both were gaga over him. And we bought all these posters, put them in our bedroom. So I have a picture of her hanging a Redford poster up in the bedroom, which is hilarious. I found it. I know there's one of me too, but I couldn't find it.
Oh,
So
that's awesome, in front of a red.
yeah, I know.
That's a
So
great poster too.
so
Do you still have the poster?
So cute. So she's, if you look at it, she's actually in front of the Redford
It's
poster.
long gone. I did have a poster of all the President's Men because it was very influential in my newspaper career. But it came out, this is Carl Bernstein's autograph.
Oh, wow.
So I
That
somehow
was even
could-
more important to
well,
you.
I could not find the book the night he was going to be. He was at McKendree University to speak, and this a couple of years ago, and I couldn't find my book, All the President's Men, and so I thought, I'll just bring the DVD. So we did sign it. So I thought that was really cool. But this came out my senior year in high school when I was already on fire about journalism and going to graduate, and that movie was just so great. And then I taught journalism in college, and I showed my class that movie, not every year, but quite a few years, because they hopefully would get fired up too. And so we have seen him age gracefully, but 85 years, and he has had quite a career, because as soon as he was in Butch Cassidy, that made him a superstar. But then I went back over his career, his early stuff, and found out he is on Broadway and Barefoot in the Park and all these other movies. So I kind of caught up with that. And then
stop.
he changed, because after we fell in love with him, he made Jeremiah Johnson, and then he wasn't afraid to not be a hero either, because he made Downhill Racer and was kind of unlikable in a couple movies, little Big Halsey and Little, I don't even know what that one was about the motorcycle guy. But he had a lot of movies where he was the anti-hero, and then he made The Way We Were, which I don't even know how many times I've seen that, but oh my God. And then of course.
You don't like it?
Really?
I mean, yes, because but I sobbed too much.
yeah.
I can't stand it. I just
oh.
can't, no, I
Oh.
can't watch it again.
I know. Well, my senior year in
It's
college,
true.
we did an April Fool's issue. So I did this little play on movies, making up movies, but I put The Way We Never Will Be, starring Robert Redford and Lynn. So it's in print somewhere, that movie. But
Did you go to SAU or?
I went to Illinois State
Okay.
up in Bloomington Normal. And so everybody who I ever went out with had to go to Robert Redford movies, and they would roll their eyes. And most guys I know would roll their eyes at the women for dragging him. But then he was a guy's guy too. And then he made The Sting, and who doesn't like The Sting?
Yeah.
Which is his most successful movie today, and the only time he was nominated for Best Actor, which is really surprising. And then in 1980, he went into directing, which I don't know about you, but Ordinary People just struck me, because I had read the book, and I just thought that was so good. And then it was on a couple weeks ago, and I watched it again, and it's held up so well.
Ordinary People might be the one why I'm setting this here. Was that 20 years ago he was nominated for the?
Yeah, he was nominated for Best Director. He won, and film purists are all upset because he beat Martin Scorsese for Raging Bull. But Robert Redford deserved to win the Oscar. I'm going to go right up, because look at the performances he got from Mary Tyler Moore, Donald Sutherland, Oscar winner Timothy Hutton, Judd Hirsch. He was masterful directing that, just nailing life in the suburbs. What I always liked about him was that character in The Way We Were. He wanted to play the golden boy that wasn't exactly a golden boy. And then he has aged over the years, as we know, because friends keep bringing it up to me, because he didn't really, he's been out in Utah for his adult life, and so yeah, all that damage and everything, so whatever. But, I couldn't believe he was 85 the other day. I was like, oh my God, he's 85. And he doesn't act much, but he's concentrated in developing young filmmakers at Sundance. And I was fortunate to be at Sundance in January of 2011. And my two sons and I were volunteer ushers. And that was an experience. But I looked for him, but I never ran into him. So I was like, my hunt for Redford and right in this suit. But it was still fun because I took my picture next to a picture of him. Just to have it like, hey, I was in Sundance. And so, I don't know about you, but I'd like to know what your favorite movies are of his.
The Natural.
Oh.
I mean, of course, I love Temple Gardner, but I thought then some people were mean in that movie, but I love The Natural.
We watched that not too long ago.
The Natural? The
Yeah.
baseball one.
Oh, it holds up so well. So he has had such a great experience with women co-stars. Because I watched the other night, I watched the Kennedy Center Honors from 2005. And Paul Newman shows up to give him a tribute. So that was when Paul Newman was still alive. It's on YouTube if you want to see it. The Kennedy Center Honors 2005. And then he's in this two-parter of Inside the Actors Studio, being interviewed by James Lipton and
Love
talking
watching that.
to the NYU acting students. And it's a two-parter. And he is on fire, telling them his motivation behind his successful movies and how he got told no a lot and how he just went ahead and did things. And he talks about what the interesting story was behind All the President's Men, that these guys were so different, and that's what he wanted to concentrate on. And it's just fascinating. And he said people told him not to work with Barbara Streisand because she was difficult. And he said that was not his experience. And as you know, the way we were, and I think even Oprah did a reunion show with them. Somebody did a reunion show with them.
Now, did he direct the way we went?
He did not. Sidney Pollack did, who also directed Out of Africa. And he directed Jeremiah Johnson too. So he and Sidney have had a really good relationship. But I don't know if you've seen that Natalie Wood documentary. It's called, what is it called? It's called What Remains Behind. And it's about her life. And he's one of the people interviewed in it because apparently they were very good friends. And in fact, he was best man at her second wedding.
Oh.
Yeah, so he talks a lot about her, but they were in the movies together, Inside Daisy Clover, and then This Property is Condemned, which is based on a Tennessee Williams one-act. So that's where they knew each other, and then she pops up in The Candidate in a cameo as herself. And so it's very fascinating, but the fact that he has had such a great relationship with these actresses, I think speaks very well of how he treats women in the biz. And he was in 4 movies with Jane Fonda. So he can hold his own. But the greatest pairing was Paul Newman, with Paul Newman. Because, and I always wish they would have done something else together besides just 2 movies. But apparently they both lived in Westport, Connecticut at one period, and they used to prank each other, and they were great friends. And so Paul Newman shares the story of how he pranked Robert Redford during this Kennedy Center honors. But he goes into a little bit of
What did he do?
He took a Porsche. Robert Redford called up because it was going to be, I think, Newman's birthday, and he called up, and because Robert Redford's really funny talking about Paul's interest in racing cars, and he said, "Oh my God, he would just bore you to death with talking about cars." So he called up this, what do they call it, salvage yard, and he asked if they had a Porsche. And they did. They have a Porsche that was in an accident, and so he had them smush it together, and he had them put it in his house. Which, I mean, not, so at his house, and then Newman returned it all smushed up into like in his hallway. So it's really fun to listen to those two talk about each other, but as we know, Paul, I don't know when Paul died, but does anybody remember? I'd say this 50 years ago,
Time goes really fast.
I
I know.
I'm still drinking his coffee, so I don't know.
I know, you feel noble buying this product, you know.
How long
you
you been?
do. But are there any of his movies that the not big marquee ones, but maybe the lesser known that you like?
3 Days to Conquer. That's a great movie.
That was great.
I mean, he does a great job in that.
That was at that time where they would have those conspiracy thrillers.
What was it about? I did not.
He works for
CIA.
CIA. He goes out for lunch, comes back, and everybody in the office has been killed. So
He's on the run.
he's on the run because he knows he's gonna be killed next. They killed everybody in that place.
And
And he
he's
somehow runs into
Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway. And she's
He goes on the run with him?
not initially, she didn't want anything to do with him initially. She was really afraid when she thought that he was gonna kill him. Of course, she didn't know about the
Yeah, well, it is Rob Redford. I had, there's this movie he made about pilots, those stunt guys with the biplanes from the old, you know, like World War One, and called Great Waldo Pepper. And I just maybe saw it once. I never went, but I was passing by my television set one night, and that movie was on, and his beauty, his close-up shot, he was so gorgeous. I just had to stop because I went, oh my God. I mean, talk about somebody in their prime being just drop dead gorgeous. And my sister said the other day after she watched The Natural again, that there isn't anybody that was better looking during our lifetime. I don't
Okay.
know.
So I thought to myself that like Brad Pitt could play his son.
Oh, yeah.
Cause
He could. Well, they did that movie together called Spy Game, which I liked. It didn't get that many, positive reviews. But he also directed Pitt in that movie, A River Runs Through It, which was so good about the fly fishing family. And Brad Pitt played the ne'er-do-well son. And that was really good. And he did Quiz Show. Nobody talks about the movie Quiz Show. That was good. With Ray Fiennes. And that was nominated for a bunch of Oscars. But people forget about that. But I think he liked to do social commentary. He liked to do things, and he's very concerned about the environment, hence Jeremiah Johnson and some of his active involvement. And so I think he likes movies that say something. But in Sneakers, I don't know if you guys remember Sneakers, but he's pretty funny in that. He's not so serious, and it's really, he's got really good timing because he was on Broadway in Barefoot in the Park, and then he made the movie with Jane Fonda. So,
and that's just an interesting thing about him because we were talking about him being this manly man, but that's just to imagine him in Barefoot in the Park. You know, I mean, it's just kind of cute. And then, like you said, as he went on, he'd just try anything. You know, there was never like he didn't want to be pigeonholed.
yeah, and another thing I liked about him was he became famous at a time where very few stars just didn't want that whole Hollywood celebrity scene. He was one of the first people, and he and his family lived in Utah. His wife, Lola, that he married in 1958, they had 4 children together, and they were married till 1985. That's when they got divorced.
Wow.
So he was married very long time. He had 4 children, and this is when he was Mr. Superstar. And he retreated to the family enclave in Utah and raised his kids, and now he has 7 grandkids. But one of the reasons that they said he and his wife were so bonded was they had their firstborn, Scott Redford, was a SIDS death. And 2 months after he died 2 months after his birth. So they thought the couple, because you know how people either get closer or they go apart. So that's where they were saying, but they were very close. And then apparently he is a great family man. And Tom Brokaw on this Kennedy Center Honors talks about Grandpa Bob, about Robert Redford was walking through an airport and this little grandkid of his was running after him, Grandpa Bob, Grandpa Bob. And so I think that's one of the nice qualities, because I think we realize he's a great actor, but he's also a really good human being.
I thought one of
Isn't
the,
he? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, well, one of the things, nice qualities about him that I liked was, now maybe he's changed since he's older, but I read at a certain point and he wasn't going to use any, plastic surgery. He was just going to have his own face. And it's so crazy to see when we saw people like Burt Reynolds and, you know, Kenny Rogers or whatever.
Right.
We wish they all looked the same as they did when they were younger. And then you look at Robert Redford and you're like, you wish he looked the same, but I actually love his face now.
Yes,
I know it's
yeah,
his real face.
Yeah. Because it's like Meryl Streep, who he acted with in Out of Africa, and I always remember the scene where he washes her hair. And then that's awesome.
Wasn't he involved with like Save the Wild Horses out west or something?
He could have been, because he does, I think he was like an environmental officer in,
Yeah, I thought so.
because he lived in Provo, Utah, and I think he was one of the environmental guys. But two of his children have gone into showbiz, but they're like, his one son is a documentary filmmaker, but he's very heavily into environmental issues. Jamie, his son Jamie, and then his daughter Amy is in showbiz too. But his daughter Shauna is a painter, and he actually studied painting in school. He didn't get involved in acting till college. He was going to art school, and he was doing like set design for theater, and that eventually went into acting, and that's how he became. And then back then, when you lived in New York, you did those early TV shows that were rather theatrical, like Playhouse 90 and things like that. And then you said he was in this Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And so he was in a lot of TV shows, The Virginian and things like that, before he was in a movie. And he also did stage work. So that's what you did growing up. And then, I mean, coming up in the biz, and then his first movie in 1962 was War Hunt, and Tom Skerritt was in that, and he's still good friends with him. So I think, I always like to look at people's connections, like, you know, how he was good friends with Natalie Wood, he was with Jane Fonda. You know, he was in The Great Walls of Pepper with Susan Sarandon. So I think.
Who was in The Great Gatsby?
Mia Farrow.
Oh, yeah.
Where did he grow up?
He grew up in California. He was a golden boy, and he actually played sports. He was a tennis player and a baseball player, and he went to University of Colorado on I think an athletic scholarship. And then he was partying too much and he lost it. And then he decided to move into art school. But he talks with James Lipton about the mistakes he made as a youth and how certain things went to pass. So he's very candid about not being a perfect guy.
Did you want to
Sure
say
seemed like
something?
it, though.
I interrupted you, I think. Sammy, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, I felt like I interrupted somebody back.
No, I said it before, about the horses.
So I brought this book that I got 1977, the films of Robert Redford. So it only goes to All the President's Men, unfortunately. So, but what are some, besides The Natural, what are some of the older movies that you like?
You guys, what are your
What are your favorite movies of Robert Redford movies? They don't have any.
Well, there's a movie from 2018 that I really like. It's called The Old Man and the Gun. And it's based on a real character. He plays a bank robber. And Sissy Spacek is in it too. And they have great chemistry. And I watched that a couple years ago. And I was like, he still has it. And he's paired with Susan Sarandon in a movie a couple years ago. Did not do well. And the name is escaping me. But they play two 60s ex-radicals.
That sounds like that was good.
Yeah, well, I liked it, but other people are saying, oh, he's too old because he's like running or something. And it was just like, the guy's 80 at the time, you know,
Right.
come on. I mean, hello. And, you know, he looks tall, but he's not that tall.
Most actors are.
I know, isn't that, you're always shocked,
Yeah.
except as a side, I will tell you, my oldest son was working in New York. He had an internship at Sesame Street, and he was going to be staying in New York with my other son, so he got a job. I know, it was really cool. He got a job as a caterer. This guy that he worked with at Sesame Street said, hey, you want to do this catering? So the very first job he did was the cast party for Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh my God.
So he's picking up glasses in the VIP section. And of course, Tim loved Martin Scorsese. Tim was a filmmaker too. And he sees Martin Scorsese at the corner of his eye. And then he sees Leonardo DiCaprio. And he said to me, Mom, he had a glow. He said, he's taller than you think. He's tanner than you think, and he had this beautiful skin. And I said to myself, you are a beautiful man. So that's one of the only people that I know is tall.
That is so awesome. You as a movie person, movie writer, critic, taking all the kids to the movies, your kids grow up to be in the movie business. That's so,
Yeah,
I
I know. They didn't get the
It's a
musical.
family business.
Yeah, they didn't get the musical comedy theater treat. No matter how many things I dragged them to. And when they were both living in New York and I would go up there and they'd go, oh, I guess we gotta see a play, huh? Sure. And I would be like, when in Rome, you know, like guys, you know, but it's so funny because, you know, it was like, there's only, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But movies. Well, for Mother's Day, when they were in high school, they used to always give me a Robert Redford DVD for Mother's Day. So, yeah.
So you actually always loved Robert Redford. I just happened to on the post you made.
Yeah.
So you have, what is your collection up to?
Let's see. It's, you know, there's still gaps, but I have 3 Days of the Condor, The Natural, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Way We Were.
How about Horse Whisperer?
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that one.
I forgot,
Yeah,
yes,
that's a
because
good one.
that's really good, and that's one of Scarlett Johansson's first movies.
Oh, really?
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah, because she's the young girl.
Oh, wow.
And Chris has got, that's right, and of course my sister and I, the two Robert Redford fans, went together to see that again. And then Electric Horseman.
Oh, yeah.
With Deborah Winger, right? It's actually Jane Fonda, but he was with Deborah Winger in Legal Eagles.
Oh, okay, that's
yeah,
right, that's right.
Yeah.
I know. But he's just worked sporadically, and then he was Brubaker, the prison warden that went undercover.
So many movies and that are just,
I know, and there's still people that like he was in that all-star cast for A Bridge Too Far, but he was just a minor part. Just like he's a minor part in the Marvel movies. When I saw Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and he shows up at the CIA director, and I went, what?
I know.
How is he in this movie? And he's been in the, you know, couple Marvel movies, and you're like, oh my God. And he's not afraid to be evil either,
Oh, he's not nice.
you know, or not likable. I remember as when we fell in love with him, we were like, oh, we have to see everything he's ever made. And so we went to tell them Willie Boy is here. And that's really a depressing movie. And so I was like, he didn't really care. You know, he wanted to be a storyteller and he wanted to do the movies that appealed to him. And so he did some movies that weren't quite the audience grabbers. But then he's made some of the best movies ever made.
Didn't he
So
do some of those deeper, darker films a little bit later on in his career?
yeah, I think so, because he was at a place where he just was gonna do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But one of the early movies, he talks about this in the James Lipton, about this downhill racer, because it's dark, because he plays this athlete, this skier, who's not likable, and he's at the Olympics, and he's arrogant, and he's a jerk, and the studio didn't want to finance this because it was dark. So they had to get alternative financing. So he talks about that, like the battling the studio system, because it's not in your little pigeonhole. So he always was going outside the box, which is awesome. And I think that speaks to what he's done for a career. He's got a list of awards now a mile long. But I do think the fact that he was only nominated for The Sting is criminal. But
Hard to believe.
I know.
And again, I think it goes to that, he has played so many different parts. And I think people get used to seeing someone do something and, you know, they like that or.
They like it when they're more typecast or whatever.
Yeah,
Like the
or, you
same
know.
Yeah, play the same character.
Yeah.
And then when they go out of box, then people take notice. But he just never cared. And I applaud him for, he founded Sundance in 1981. And that has become this huge commercial thing now. But at first, it celebrated those independent filmmakers. And that's what I think he always has been drawn to, is a singular vision by a storyteller, and we're not gonna follow the rules that the studio wants.
Was he just trying to help those guys out, or did he do a lot of those type of movies himself?
Well, I think he did once in a while, he would take a detour and do a movie that appealed, and then it would really go nowhere. Like, there's a movie called The Last Castle, and I cannot remember it.
Isn't that what it, about a prison also?
I think it is.
He's in prison or?
I think so.
Yeah.
I know, and The Candidate was one of the first ones to take on a highly charged political topic.
What was that about?
About this pretty boy who runs for office, and at the end, I'm not, spoiler alert, he says to his campaign manager, who's played by Peter Boyle, it's really good, he goes, what do we do now? Because they didn't expect him to win, but he used all these tactics, all these slimy, sleazy tactics to win.
Was he just trying to get famous, or?
Yeah, he was, and he ran against the incumbent, who was played by Melvin Douglas. I think it was Melvin, the old guy. But it was a prescient movie about politics. So he wasn't afraid to tackle those kind of things. But William Goldman, who wrote Butch Cassidy, obviously nailed that script. I mean, that magic between him and Newman
Oh my God.
was so great.
Who all saw Butch Cassidy? I'm the only one that never saw it. I've
Really?
never seen it. I didn't get it.
Oh my God. And you know what, I found that, like, rewatching it now, it seems so slow. But when you're in the theater and you're in the vast west and you're on the horse, it didn't matter. It was
Plus when
just.
you're not you didn't expect any of it.
Right.
That scene where you think he's gonna rape.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
So,
gotta
but
see
you
that.
have, yeah, I've gotta totally see it. It's funny because when you see something, out of its year that it was made, even though it's an old thing. I watched Billy Jack not too long ago, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so slow, and it just didn't affect me as much as back in the, whatever it was, the 60s or 70s or whatever, when it came out and was so amazing.
Yeah, not everything's aged well. The last time I saw Butch Cassidy, I was folding laundry on a Saturday night, and I watched it again, and I was like, oh man, this hasn't aged well. But if you take it into context of what magic they created on screen, and that's just, it's just so awesome. And then to repeat it with the Sting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the
Because-
Sting, I think, is aged well.
Oh,
That one you can watch over and over again.
oh, yeah, because it's so entertaining. And then Robert Shaw, he was such a great villain, and he was just kind of, because we saw him in Jaws,
Yeah.
and then he's the villain there, and Ray Walston, and there's all these little minor characters that you're watching, like Butch Cassidy has a lot of minor characters, including Cloris Leachman.
Oh,
She's one of the ladies in the brothel that
really?
Butch sees in the beginning.
Oh, I gotta look for her.
Yeah,
She's
and a minor
got-
character in a lot of movies,
Lots
and
of
that,
movies.
she was a minor character in one of my favorite Christmas movies, Prancer, and she just shows up in the movie, and you're just like, wow, that's
Wait a
crazy.
minute, you don't like Prancer.
I love Prancer.
There is I'll tell you later, an insane joke with my family about Prancer.
Well, Christmas does not start, does it, for me,
No, that's
until I
the
watch
first movie.
Prancer.
Well, see, we watched this and they all tease me and say, Mom, you made us watch this depressing movie. And every Christmas, they bring this up still and say this to me.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Prancer is totally worth it, yeah. And, okay, I'm just gonna say, I know we're going a little off topic, but I had a slight disagreement with Lynn in my mind, because when she said that Robert Redford was the best looking person ever, there's two other people that it's hard to see who's better, and one is Richard Gere, and the other one is, he's in Prancer, Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
Who is married to Catherine Ross,
That's right.
and they've been married for 40 some years. Yeah.
Wow.
I think he's one of the card players, isn't he? In the beginning scene, I'm not sure,
Of what?
but it might be of Butch
He must
Cassidy.
be.
Oh,
He
he
might
must
be
be.
one of the
Shows
poker.
other things.
Yeah. Well, they've been married for 40 some years, but oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, that voice of
Yeah,
his.
they're all kind
Yeah.
of tied up there.
Yeah, that voice, that rugged He-Man
Uh-huh.
thing. But Robert Redford and Catherine Ross just have such great chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
But I also thought Paul Levin was gorgeous.
Oh, my God.
Oh my God.
He is.
And
Yeah.
just,
Well, speaking of gorgeous and not getting awards, I was thinking about the fact that Cary Grant didn't get awards.
yeah,
But, maybe it's because both of them made it look easy.
yeah.
Even though they're completely different, they would be in different roles,
Mhm.
they just, you never thought of them as acting because they made it look easy. I don't know.
I
Well,
agree.
this is a little off, but there was this guy that went to SEMA when my husband was there that looked exactly like Robert Redford.
Wow.
And you would just like, and it was like, I'd go down and visit Bernie. And it was like, really? You're just kind of, you couldn't not just stare at him.
You said you met him, what was it, more of the story?
I was, out in the Hamptons, and we went to a supermarket, and actually there's a Rolls Royce in the parking lot. So my girlfriend and I walk in, and we're like walking to the supermarket.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Did he have a glow? Did he have a glow about him?
My sister-in-law got on an elevator in DC, and all of a sudden the doors open, it stops, and he and a couple other people get on the elevator, and she's like,
Who saw that, who was that?
my sister-in-law.
Wow,
Yeah.
so, and then you saw him,
Well, I didn't see him at Sundance. I looked for him.
oh, you did,
I
okay.
looked for him. He usually was there to open up, but I'm not sure if he opened up that session, but they said they saw him walking around. It just that I think by then, because it was 2011, by then, he's been part of it for 30 years. He probably just went to the opening and then showed up maybe at the end. but I sure looked for him.
Mm.
He used to have a restaurant there too and stuff. But I think by then it was such the upper echelon because Park City is very wealthy in terms of all these winter homes and skiers. And if you see Olympic trials, they're always, like we're in Park City. So it's different. But back in the day when it was just a haven for independent movies, I'm sure it was more casual and he was more hands-on. But there's a huge team involved now, and he just, it's his name, Sundance, so his character. So there's the Sundance Institute, and then there's the Sundance Film Festival. So the Sundance Institute, they do a lot of where they have these labs where they bring up filmmakers. Like, I think you apply for grants and they'll develop your film. And the last couple of years, there's been some really good documentaries and really good films to come out of Sundance that were developed through the process there. But you gotta applaud him for doing that, for taking charge. And then he talks about that in the Inside the Actors Studio, that he was just drawn to that kind of filmmaking. And so that's what he wanted to do. And I think because he's had so much, the golden boy, he makes people feel at ease and welcome and tries to be regular. But he used to, back in the day at the height of his fame, he did not really sit down with people and do interviews, or you never saw him on TV talk shows or whatever. But I think in later years, he's helped promote his movies. There's this one called All Is Lost, and it is just him on a boat. And everybody thought he was going to get nominated for an Oscar. And this was a couple of years ago, and he wasn't. And it's kind of dark. But he's this guy whose boat is sinking, and he's trying to save himself.
Oh, wow.
So it's a weird version of the Tom Hanks one.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, because it's all on this boat. And so it's called All Is Lost. And they were really pushing him to win the Oscar, to be nominated, and he didn't. But I think he was the only person in it. But you just, you don't know what's going to strike magic. You don't know what's going to, like, Out of Africa won 7 Oscars. And he plays a guy that's not even a major character, because Meryl Streep's character, Karen, is the major character, but he just plays the romantic interest. And the fact that he's a loner. How many times has Robert Redford played a loner? And he says to her, you've ruined it for me, when he falls in love with her. You've ruined it for me. And she said, what? And he goes, being alone. And then she has this great line that I refer to often, is that, when the gods want to punish you, they give you what you want. Interesting line.
Yeah.
But they're so good together in that movie. So you never know who's going to have that great chemistry together and who isn't. But who do you think he had a really good chemistry with?
Oh, no. Oh, a woman, you mean?
Yeah, a woman.
Barbara Streisand.
Yeah, how about when she touches his hair?
Oh, my God.
Why don't they just make a remake and change that darn ending?
When she goes over and does that at the end, that's when it's like, oh, my God.
And she made
Well,
pot
yeah.
roast.
Yeah,
Hot roast.
yeah, and she says your girl is your girl is lovely, Hubble. And in Sex and the City, Carrie Bradshaw says that to Mr. Big when they are broken up and he's marrying Natasha, is it, or something? He's marrying that model type, and she and the girls are having cosmos and they're talking about the way we were, and then she sees him outside because one of the friends hasn't seen the way we were, so the girls are filling her in, and then they're all singing the theme song, and then she sees Big and she goes up to him and she touches his hair and she goes, your girl is lovely, Hubble.
Aw.
And so there's that connection. So he's become part of pop culture. Because it's like short and like the better than Redford, you know, because that's a shorthand. And so I think, and the natural, all guys, sports guys, your husband has had to use this reference to Roy Hobbs.
Yeah.
Is the best there ever was. And then he's in the hospital and he says to Glenn Close, God, I love baseball. And then that scene where it's 2 strikes, 3 balls, last inning, and he sails, spoiler alert, he sails it over, and that music, that great score by Randy Newman just swells. And when Pujols hit that home run back in during the game against Houston, what was it, like 2004 or 5, something like that, and it was like this improbable ending, and people always compare that to the natural, and like that's the greatest home run Pujols ever hit. So there's that, people always compare things to the natural. That's one of those things too.
Who remembers who they went to see the Way We Were with? Do you remember your date or who you went with?
Yeah, that's easy.
All right, who did you go with?
Bernie. We
Bernie.
dated since high school.
Oh, okay.
He got drunk, he had to go to everything.
How about you?
I
Don't remember. Don't remember? Do you remember?
Might have been my girlfriend. I know I went to see Butch Cassidy with her. What year was?
That was 1973.
Do you remember yours?
Yeah, I think it was my friend Tom, because I think it came out around Thanksgiving, and we were both home from college, and so we went. And I had this on again, off again thing in college with this guy. And I remember when our campus finally did The Way We Were, and I was crying so bad during it that I had to like elite. And this one friend of mine goes, "You're staying. You're staying." Because I was like, I gotta go. I just, you know, just wailing. But I know my sister and I had seen it at some point. And I know that's probably the most I've seen one of his movies, because as you get older, I think it resonates more, because as we've grown and gotten life and had relationships, because there's that one scene where he says to her, "Oh, you pushed too hard." And then she goes, "Oh, but look what I've got." And you're like, oh God. So there's all those little triggers, but I think it just, you know, he was the golden boy and she was so different than him, and that opposites attract, but then it pulled them apart.
All right, Sally, who did you go with?
Do you know what it is? Do you remember the story?
No.
I think I went with Brian, but that wasn't the most important part of the story. Was after the show's over and we're standing up like this and we turn around and my parents are 2 rows back.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, that's hilarious. They about died when they, now do you remember the story? Oh my gosh. They were with the captions, somebody else, and there was like 6 of them and they're like, oh. They were so embarrassed that all of them were there.
It's so funny.
Isn't that funny? Now I forgot who the guy was, but I'm assuming who I know who it was. There was only 2 choices.
Is there any actors you think today that you would compare to Robert Redford or Newman or any of the big ones from the past?
What do you think? I don't know. Leonardo's pretty.
Leonardo? I love George.
Oh, Clooney.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because they seem to be
Yeah.
like people that do what they think is right.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Clooney does have that social concept,
yes.
and he's just effortlessly charming.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of efforts. Yeah, and then Brad Pitt too. I think he's a little scruffier, but he's also
Except in Thelma and Louise.
yeah. Oh,
Yes.
oh, yeah. Well, in River Runs Through It, he looks really good.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, he has a goal. That movie has such great scenes with the cinematography, the outdoors, the Montana, and I think Tom Skerritt's in that too. Robert Redford narrates it, but he's not in it. He directed it, but Tom Skerritt's the dad. Because I think where they're showing the audience for the Kennedy Center Honors, and he's in there. So Tom Brokaw gives a little speech too, because they were great friends. So, but his story about how all the President's Men came about is really fascinating, and I enjoyed that very much. But he and Dustin Hoffman were great in that, and they just nailed, as one who spent 40 years in newspapers, they just nailed that whole.
There's just so many names that you just list, you just keep going on, and there's so many of them from that period or era, I guess you could say, but I guess before that, there was like, you know, the golden holiday days.
You're welcome.
We don't have to leave, but I like to keep these things right about an hour, just if somebody has plans. And I know Barb has to be somewhere, so I didn't want her to feel bad to have to leave. But and I'm gonna go ahead and turn the Zoom off, and we can just stay and chat for stuff. So you guys, thanks for coming on the Zoom, and we will talk to you later.
Have you heard anything about